Greetings all, and welcome to Esoteric Babble. Today we begin a series on how to pronounce/read the Greek alphabet. Now what this means is when we see Greek words, we'll be able to pronounce them. Now that doesn't mean that we're going to know the meaning of like an entire Greek sentence. We're not learning the grammar, but this will be a good start. And it's useful for those of us interested in esotericism, Western esotericism. Greek shows up a lot. It might show up in tarot and magic. And, we're getting near Christmas time, so you might want to crack open a Greek New Testament and read some accounts of the birth of Jesus or other parts of the New Testament or other Greek works in general. So one thing to keep in mind is that this pronunciation is not the same as modern Greek. I remember I had some friends from Cyprus, and I was pronouncing Greek words to them. I was asking them about Greek, and they were like, whoa, who told you how to pronounce, who told you to pronounce Greek that way? But the way we're going to learn to pronounce Greek is the way classicists and New Testament, those who study the New Testament, it's how they pronounce it, more or less. There's probably some variation. Okay. And the where we're going to begin is with the vowels. And we'll go in alphabetic order with the vowels, starting with this letter. And Greek, like English or the Roman alphabet, has uppercase and lowercase letters. And so they're shown here side by side. You could probably figure out what letter this is related to. In the English alphabet, should say that the English alphabet comes from the Latin or the Roman alphabet, which in turn, like the Greek and Hebrew, came from Phoenician, which in turn came from a later form of Egyptian hieroglyphics. So we'll talk about that later. There will probably be a series on reading Hebrew as well. So this, the name of this letter is alpha, and this letter is pronounced ah, as in father. Again, probably no mystery about what letter this is related to. Epsilon. This is pronounced kind of like the in met or bet. Now this letter, eta, it's one of these Greek letters that looks like an English letter but it doesn't really correspond in sound. However, if we take this first one, the uppercase, and you think about it's the letter H in English, if we just don't pronounce the consonant at the end and say A, that will give us the sound, eta, A, kind of as in the word obey. And then next to it, this is almost like an H that doesn't have the, it's missing this little part here, or kind of like an N. Once again, probably not difficult to figure out what letter this corresponds to, iota. It could be like I in bit or E in police. Again, not a big mystery here. Omicron. So this is a shorter O, probably like the word, like the sound of O in the word not. Ah. This is ypsilon. So you could kind of think about it as an sound. It's really, I think, closer to like ypsilon. So obviously this is, I think in Spanish they call this the Greek I, this letter Y. Here it looks more like our U. Again, it won't take long to remember how to pronounce that one. And one final vowel. Again, this one doesn't exactly line up with our English expectations. This is omega, the big O or long O. So it is like an O in vote. Now, once we kind of have those down, we can go on to combinations of vowels, which are called diphthongs, which is also a Greek word, meaning like two things sounding together. So when we come across this, it is not I, but I, as in the word aisle. This is a, as in the word eight. Oi, as in the word oil. We, as in the word queen. Ow, as in the word cow. You, like in the word Eucharist. And one other, this is not really a diphthong because I should say this iota subscript is not really a diphthong because we see that there's kind of this little iota or iota. I shouldn't use the English pronunciation. It's put under these long vowels, and it's just not pronounced. It helps us. It gives us sort of information about the word, but it isn't. It does not affect the pronunciation. Another thing that we have to learn about reading Greek is that there is something called a breathing mark at the beginning of a word if it starts with a vowel. So for instance, here, this is called a smooth breathing. It looks like our apostrophe. This would just be pronounced ah. In this case, however, it would be pronounced ha. It's a rough breathing, gets a little puff of air. This only happens at the beginning of words that start, the beginning of words that begin with a vowel. There are accents in Greek. Ancient Greek has 3. Modern Greek, I think, just uses 1. This is what they look like. We don't have to learn anything about the rules of accents if we're just reading Greek. When you come across an accent, no matter what it looks like, it's just emphasized. It originally might have been tonal or something, but no one knows really what to do with them now except to emphasize them. Now, we've got a few words for practice here. This is, we'll kind of break this down. We have our alpha with a smooth breathing, so this is going to start ah. And then these 2 vowels form a diphthong, so it's a, and we have the accent mark here, so a, and it means always, not an uncommon word. Here, we have, again, meaning that we're going to break it down a little bit, epsilon and epsilon. Notice here that the breathing mark is over the second of the 2. So that really clues us in that this is a diphthong, that these are pronounced together. So this is you. And this accent will apply to both of these words, or to both of these letters. But since it's a single word, it's not really going to have a big impact. This shows up a lot as a prefix, as in the words like Eucharist and euthanasia, and it means well, good. For those of you interested in Pali, or if you follow the daily Pali reading, it would be su, su, as in like sukha, would be the equivalent. Okay, now here I had to cheat a little. I threw in some consonants, which we're not covering until the next episode, but I bet you can figure out what these consonants, what their sound is. Kind of looks like the letter B, and it is. So here, now I left this, sometimes you're going to see capital letters, especially if they're names or at the beginning of a sentence. So we have a smooth breathing, and an ah, so ab, and then we have the ba sound and another ah with the accent, so abba. And this is a transliteration of the Hebrew word for father. Last one, and you'll probably know what it means here since I've written it down. We have kind of a trifecta. We have a rough breathing, an accent, and an iota subscript. So remember, this iota subscript will not affect the pronunciation, but this is ah, and because of the rough breathing, ha. And it's also accented. Again, a consonant we haven't covered yet, but it's probably not too hard to imagine that it's delta or the letter D. This is eta, and this is a final sigma. This is what sigma looks like at the end of a word. Kind of looks like an S, and it sounds like an S. So Hades, Hades. So I hope that was somewhat helpful and somewhat clear. Next up, the consonants.